From the depths of internet, we come to you. Bad news, good news, dead horse beating news. Even no news will stop us. We'll make news. Even if it is in dumpster fire. We bring you integrity, except when it's EA, Ubisoft, Bethesda, Star Citizen, practically all of them. Movies, shows, and other industry bullshit. This totally is not a waste of time, but it sure is. Space Waste News! Ladies and gentlemen, we have audio, we have everything looking quite alright. It's time for some God damn it! Space Race News! There we go. And, well, I figured I could bring back the good old Space Race News for more of a monthly rather than a weekly thing. And, well, since I'm doing it alone, I think I'll have enough news for a whole month to recap rather than a weekly thing. Also, I'm doing some other things in the background and so on and so forth, so monthly seems like a decent one. So, in the spirits of my old co-host, the pilot, well, what the hell can we start with? Well, I suppose, well, for the January particularly, there have been some interesting news for both the TV shows, games, and, well, everything surrounding, you know, that sort of interests, if you will. So, that's basically the Space Race News. Yeah, in the past, I've not published any of the Space Race News as a public viewable live stream, but all the other past transmissions, broadcasts, and all that stuff has been available in a public playlist. So I'll link it down below, of course, if you want to go and check it out. Me and Pilot from time to time bullshitting around, or just me doing the same thing, and so on and so forth. So, well, today I figured, well, we could start with one of the main topics from the, you know, the title there. So, yeah, how about we start with the most important one? And that is Stadia is fucking dead, baby! Yes! Okay, so, despite the fact that I'll try to echo some sentiments from Pilot's point of view, basically the game streaming. Those that don't know, Stadia was Google's attempt to create a game streaming service to sort of offer a service, specifically, obvious. Fuck you! No, I'm goddamn. That was a reminder to start or release something. Never mind that. I'm already live, right? So, so Stadia essentially was a game streaming service, and well, when it comes to game streaming as a service or approach to, well, games or the future of gaming, or at least part of the future of gaming, I can tell you that I absolutely hate it. I genuinely hate it. Now, there are positives to it, and just, you know, for the benefit of the doubt, again, to echo a little bit of Pilot's the takes in the past, basically the game streaming offers a very low bar of entry, as well as basically any kind of a chance to play any kind of game on any kind of a device that basically can stream a certain amount of, you know, bitrate and display it on your phone or tablet or whatever else you know, deem it to be appropriate. So there's a minimal, very minimal point of entry for game streaming, and yeah, it could be fine and dandy. And depending on how the service is run, you could have decent amount of game selection to play. for a very low amount of price, if you really are strapped for cash, if you will. Of course, that ignores a couple of things like free-to-play games or, very, very cheap games themselves. But the hardware would be the main one. Yep. I'm reading the chats, and then yes, of course. But to get through the topics, essentially, game streaming. The problem with game streaming, for me specifically, was that companies essentially are taking you hostage, kind of. Well, that's obviously my typical way of exaggerating things, but basically, what you're buying is not games. Right. There were some examples from Stadia that said that, or was it Stadia or one of the other ones, essentially offering that, hey, if you buy a game from our service, of course, paying extra for the service itself, the games that you buy will be yours, whether or not that is on Steam later down the line, available to you or not. There were some additional services like Shadow, which was different style of streaming that's more appropriate, but we'll talk about that. But basically, the way Stadia worked was that you'd be buying into their service and, you'd be streaming games to your device. However, after the end-of-life service for the fucking thing, essentially, you won't be accessing your purchased games, if you will. So there is kind of the problem with the general sentiment of game streaming or what was it? There was another word for the stream, but basically game streaming, essentially. Yeah. Well, hold on. Let me check one thing. Yes. Everything's in place. Right. So, Stadia essentially was sort of an approach for game companies to sort of, take, or rather offer you a service rather than a good. And, frankly speaking, I consider games as a goods, not services. And live services has been indeed a big problem for just general gaming overall. Who does the game belong to once the service is not available, once the servers are cut, right? That sort of end-of-life offerings. In the past, we've seen plenty of games basically just go up and die because, hey, the developer company decided, it's not worth, it's not worth spending money to upkeep it, specifically servers and the staff that is required to just make sure that it runs in the first place, so that the game is available to play or function specifically. And after that cancellation, they don't release the code for it or data that would allow it to be played continuously. Essentially, you could think of World of Warcraft, not exactly, but Elite Dangerous, for at least my community, would be the most closest thing to it. Once the servers die, what happens, right? You can't play offline, so you do need server code in order to make it run. Now, of course, Elite Dangerous is a bit different because starting from Kickstarter days, back in the day, they indeed offered, or rather specifically set out the end of life promise. At least, in a sort of a passing way, but still, they promised that the source code would be available once the game is dead, at least in the sense of the developer support. So yeah, so that would be the release there. But the game streaming specifically just offers you to play games through their service, not owning games. Or rather, some of them had essentially the approach that, hey, whatever games you buy, it's going to be on this service, not the game itself as, the license for the game, right? That you would normally do as, let's say a Discord or hell, even, let's say something like Steam, right? You buy specifically on this platform. Well, what happens when the platform shuts down? Well, fuck you, that's what. And that's kind of the problem with game preservation, as well as essentially just a company deciding to go in your home, as Ross Scott would say, and literally just stabbing the disc and destroying it. And that's kind of the problem with not only game preservation, but also just your product, essentially, your rights, if you will, owning the product specifically. And some companies don't think that it is necessary that you should be owning, products. You should be continuously paying, because that's better, right? And yeah, obviously, continuous influx of cash, right, is a lot better than one-time deal. And that's been the problem with games and gaming overall in the past 5 to 10 years. 10 years back, we started seeing some live service games coming out. And, well, actually, yeah. And for the last 5 years, we've seen more and more games basically be heavily reliant on the online component, specifically tying it to, game servers or whatever service or perpetual control that the company that makes it would have over it. What happens after, the end of life has come? Do they release the code or servers that are required to actually make it functional? It's too much work, it seems. So there's that. But anyways, so Stadia. Right, Stadia is dead. And the way it died was really funny. Funny, sad, specifically. Google was essentially, I think, there was this one developer for a video game coming out relatively soon for Stadia. Exclusive. Was it exclusive or was it a timed exclusive? But basically, they were developing a game for Stadia, and mere days, if not hours, before the announcement from Google, just blog posting that, hey, we're canceling Stadia, that's it, sorry guys. They were still presenting that, oh yeah, the game is, we're ready to soon release it. But even developers weren't notified for the cancellation of Stadia, and then just vanishing. But, whatever it's worth, yeah, game streaming as a service is a really sort of a shittily implemented sort of a thing. I did mention this service called Shadow. Basically, the company is offering to essentially you streaming your account, or rather specifically you connecting remotely to their servers, where there's an actual PC, or, well, a portion of a PC relegated to you, specifically on, some hardware is relegated to your account, and you can literally log into your Steam accounts or whatnot else and download the stuff on their servers and play from it. So essentially, it's just offering the service to connect to a PC. So you'd be using your own accounts on GOG, Steam, and whatnot else. So there's that difference between what Stadia offered, as well as all the other examples of game streaming did, to something like what Shadow does. But even so, Shadow is still in its infancy, and it's promising, but yeah, it's still being worked on, if you will. So there's that. So anyways, Stadia is that good for gaming overall. It's basically the sort of one of the proofs that, there's not much of a market for game streaming and even if there is, the current execution from every single outlet out there, Stadia, the PlayStation, what is it, PlayStation Now? There was also Nvidia's example of it. Oh, god damn it. Well, there are a couple of services out there. The Stadia was the more known, I suppose, and fuck it. Like genuinely, every single service offered very poor selection of games as well as performance, and yeah, no thanks. No. If they actually tried, maybe, but at this point, it's basically just the bare minimum of effort is being put into it, and Stadia seemed to have the biggest push for it, but even so, they had massive issues, and no. As a asshole critic, I personally see that essentially as just a dicking around, for the bare minimum amount of effort to just see how much money you can rake in from it rather than actually producing an interesting product. Again, Shadow for me would be a more interesting service, more appropriate for it. But yeah, no thanks. No thanks, Stadia. You did bad. You didn't really give too many shits about it, and well, also there is the fact that the global infrastructure when it comes to internet connection is inconsistent and very poor in many places. Hell, even in, let's say, Germany, right? In more rural areas for Germany, the internet speeds are worse than here in Latvia. I shit you not. So yeah, it's anyways, right. Moving on then to the next topic. Well, might as well go through the list of things that happened during the January stuff. So the first thing that is written off for me is Duke Nukem Forever. Remember that game? Yes, a game came out in 2012, published by Gearbox, essentially taking over the project of just finally pushing out whatever was the Duke Nukem Forever after 10 years of development hell. Finally, some kind of a product. However, in January, or was it early or late December, essentially leaks came out. Actual leaks for the 2001 build, code, and actually playable parts of 2001 version of Duke Nukem Forever came out. And you can, from ModDB and other places, you can actually download it and try to launch it and play it a little bit. I did it. Some level transitions don't work. Levels you have to load in manually, but at least they are loaded up, and it's phenomenal. Like, genuinely, if they finished that game back in the day, it would have been definitely one of the more technically capable games at the time. It was 3 years away from Half-Life 2. Well, 3 to, well, give or take 2 years away from Half-Life 2. And it genuinely was a step between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2. It still had the graphics of Half-Life, right? And opposing force and, that sort of old style of FPS games. With, not much of a realism, but, blocky sort of looks. But even so, it was a sort of a transitional period step. And it genuinely had partial physics, if you will, physical objects that the Half-Life 2 introduced so perfectly back in the day. But it's astonishing to sort of a time capsule and take a look at what could have been. It genuinely had an interesting, at least, design for levels. Story potentially was also there, and it just looked so much more astonishing, if you will. Personally, I find it extremely interesting because if you compare that 2001 example with the current 2012, whatever that was for Duke Nukem, it's just, how could they scrap it? Like, my question was, yeah, I get it that by 2004 or 2003, when the leaked version of Half-Life 2 came out, they might have just given up because by then it looked very old as a Duke Nukem Forever. But even back then, even with the astonishing look of Half-Life 2 back in the day, I would say definitely the Duke Nukem Forever at the time would have been absolutely still a good game, genuinely well regarded and well played too, I would say. But for whatever reason, I would say is Duke Nukem Forever lapsed, if you will, and rather 3D Realms lapsed with the financial problems. There's a bigger story behind it, but if you genuinely want to take a look at the Duke Nukem Forever 2001 version, there are leaked versions, leaked builds. Go check it out. genuinely is cool and interesting sort of a time capsule thing. Additionally, of course, the leaker leaked additional files and actually game stuff for let's see, it was some other Duke Nukem based games. There was a third person sort of a platformer. And let's see, a few other little things essentially, but the big one definitely was the 2001 example. So that was the big thing that happened in January or early January, late December, give or take. It sort of slowly came out, but absolutely worth taking a look. And I'm so fucking happy that we can actually see and play what could have been. Maybe modders one day will manage to make an actual playable game out of it. It's rough. It's very rough. A lot of parts. Literally, you have a female character as you would expect in Duke Nukem Forever, but instead of a voiced character, you have just a default one of the developers' voices being used, and apparently, John St. John wasn't voicing Duke for that game as well, so that was an interesting side note that I kind of heard. So yeah, it's interesting. Nonetheless, definitely something fucking amazing, and yeah, go check it out if you're not so scared about downloading random half-baked builds of a game of ModDB. Moving on then, YouTube changes the swearing policy, or rather the policy for profanity and other little things in January. So, as somebody who enjoys using a lot of profanity, well, I was yet once more annoyed. Essentially, oh gods, what was it? Back in the day, YouTube essentially put some regulatory rules, I guess, for profanity. Essentially, excessive profanity would be, limited in ads. Rather, would mark the video for limited ads and other things. Hold on. However, now changes have been made specifically that if you have swearing within the first, I think it was 30 seconds of the video, as one of bigger content creators on the platform showcased, by literally pausing and then starting swearing, just how stupid that sort of approach was. Elsinger got VR support, you'd say. It's a mod. Okay, if it's official, then I might think about it, but a quote-unquote boomer shooter with a VR support, nah, I'll prefer a screen, but fair enough. Anyways, but yeah, basically YouTube's change on the swearing policy is absolutely fucking stupid, and it genuinely is just the dipshit move of just the highest prolapsed order. There we go. So yeah, when it comes to swearing, or rather why swearing apparently is not, looked at as a good thing. Well, you see, it's weird. It's an archaic thought process that essentially, if you have a creator making a video about, some swearing or using some swearing, some advertisers think that would reflect poorly on their brand. However, as many people have shown time and time again, and I suspect a lot of you are quite used to my amazing capability of expressing myself in many sort of forms and ways, you're not miffed about swearing, but it seems that, advertisers specifically are coming from the place of just absolute fucking dipshittery, which is just sort of appealing to the lowest common denominator, just the weakest, knee-jerkiest fucking Karens in the world. You know what I mean? And who seem to be particularly annoyed by even just the mildest sort of insults and so on and so forth. But however, watching my content specifically, you probably have noticed different ways of expressing thyself without even swearing, and yet saying probably the most horrific things out there. And YouTube seems to be choosing to, well, cave to that sort of sentiment of, hey, swearing is bad, no stuff, for the first 30 seconds, 30 seconds of a video. So we're just gonna, reduce the income from the views that you'll get if you do so. There's a lot to say about the changes for the YouTube policy overall. It's archaic, sort of knee-jerk nonsense that essentially, they first tried to actually roll it out a little bit earlier than that, and I actually got hit by a little bit of that myself. Now, I tend not to swear in the very start of the video myself, because I've been here for long enough to know what could happen, if you will, and it's been one of the things that I've observed in my time, swearing and making videos and content for YouTube, including a lot of heavy swearing overall. So I kind of already expected the first seconds of the video to always be monitored. However, now they've sort of come out of the cloak and dagger hiding places, actually announcing that specific rule and change for YouTube policies. And it's fucking stupid. So fuck them all. And indeed, fuck their algorithms overall, because, hey, I wish to make genuinely interesting series of videos or style of videos, but being relegated, or rather being deemed as a niche creator for, let's say, Elite Dangerous or whatnot else, as soon as I make something else, the algorithm punishes me, but that's a whole different story. So, yeah, there's a lot to say fuck you, YouTube, about, and... fuck them. And yeah. I guess this is just more of a rant rather than particular news piece, but oh, there you go. Next up, speaking of licensing, oh god, okay, well, January, a leaked draft version of Open Game License 1.1 for Dungeons and Dragons from the Wizards of the Coast, the makers of Dungeons and Dragons, or handlers of the IP, leaked, as I said, and it pertained to be more exploitative, or particularly more monetizing on the side of the Wizards of the Coast. Now, the first draft was so bad that the community immediately backlashed so hard. And sure, it was a draft. It wasn't released, right? It wasn't officially released. But as Linus Tech Tips once said, you don't just draft that sort of a thing and not release it, right? Paraphrasing, of course, but yeah, essentially what the drafted Open Game License pertained to was clamping down on more homebrew stuff. Essentially, one of the points that they made in that particular Open Game License was that if your company were to make some sort of profit out of homebrew content that involved, some Dungeons and Dragons related stuff, in specific to relating to, Dungeons and Dragons, let's say, I don't know, character sheets and what else, using the system and rules of, hopefully I can explain this. I'm a layman, so forgive me if I'm not correct on, the legal stuff, but essentially what they went with was, hey, if you earn more than $750,000 from your stuff, revenue, mind you, basically you have to pay about 25%. I think it was 25%, or was it basically $200,000 or so at least minimum to Dungeons and Dragons if you're making more than that. Yeah, it was kind of interesting. That's from the revenue alone. It's not net profit, it's revenue. So you first of all have to pay for, the whatever resources you've spent, on making whatever content you've decided for the homebrew stuff. So there goes that cost from the revenue immediately. So, and from the profit on top that you get from the net profit, you still have to take a big ass chunk and send it to the fucking the Wizards of the Coast in order to actually, not get in legal trouble or what else due to the license agreement. There was a lot of other little things, but essentially it boiled down to the fact that I think one of the CEOs, well, not CEOs, but executives were quoted saying, if I'm correct on this one, hopefully, again, it's one of those things that perhaps I needed to check, but okay. The players are under monetized. Now, again, listening to Linux Tech Tips talk about that specific part, I'm paraphrasing him. There's no good way to literally say that sentence. Even if it's true, there's just no good way of saying that. It's... Essentially, there was such a big backlash. Of course, it's a draft and it's not coming out and what else. However, despite it, a version of it is gonna come out. And indeed, Wizards of the Coast did walk back quite a bit of the problems of that open game license. And there won't, of course, be the revenue share, if I remember correctly. They took out... Also, they with the Open Game License 1.1, Wizards of the Coast attempted to gain non-exclusive, but free... free... license to use whatever ideas somebody else has come and reproduce it as their own product, I think it was, or licensing was it specifically. God damn it, there was a term for it, but basically, if you make something that is popular for D&D, irrevocably, Wizards of the Coast gets also a free pass to essentially monetize that and make their own version of it. Think of basically this is the sort of a case that happened with Blizzard with Warcraft 3. Back in the day, Warcraft 3 spawned this one fantastic mod for a game mode called Defense of the Ancients, or Dota. The so-called first MOBA, or... God damn it, what was the MOBA standing for? Well, regardless, Defense of the Ancients was the mod that spawned something like League of Legends and Dota, and a few other examples that were heavily popularized or became very popular very quickly, and indeed today is one of the most profitable types of games out there. Specifically Dota and League of Legends being just the most amazingly profitable games out there. So, Blizzard, with the release of Warcraft 3 Reforged, attempted to change their, the modding licensing, essentially, as well, where they would gain also that sort of access to, for free, use whatever mods that players make for that game, that is Reforged, and monetize them however way they want to, or use the license for it without pay, right? And essentially also that all the mod ideas that were to be spawned on Warcraft 3 would be basically belonging as an idea, as an IP to Blizzard. That was the original terms. Haven't looked into whether or not they changed it, but basically, yeah. If you make any mod, the idea doesn't belong to you anymore. The mod doesn't really belong to you, even though you're a developer, right? By these license agreements, if you want to put that mod onto Warcraft 3, and essentially, it's just basically trying to get the ideas, licenses, and blah 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 for a game or game modes, or whatever it becomes popular, if it becomes popular, and to sort of get that foot in the door to be able to recreate it officially or specifically having, exclusive rights. Well, of course, with the Wizards of the Coast, they are specifically mentioning that non-exclusive. So there's a bit of a difference, but essentially, with the D&D, yeah, they walked back quite a bit of those problems or problematic aspects, and yeah, I'm not sure about it. Frankly speaking, I find it still quite disgusting that these companies are attempting to just get that foot in the door at least. In order, hey, if by some fluke accident your creation is popular, well, rather than offering you a good sum of money, as a license, right, for your creation, we're just gonna put in a little excerpt into the license that tells we don't have to by default. You're agreeing to give us this idea, and there's a lot to say about these licenses and the way these companies are attempting to basically fuck about and take people's ideas essentially for themselves, or rather leave these, as I said, foots in many doors, shall we say? But yeah. Now, essentially, what happened with Wizards of the Coast right now is them walking back that, parts of that open game license and whatnot else. But generally speaking, it's still a disgusting sort of a corporate attempt to clamp down on the already existing open nature, or rather as open as it was for D&D, to sort of profit more out of it. And honestly speaking, like Jim Sterling often says, it's not about earning some money about these companies. It's earning all of the money. And, well, here we see just a continuous push to sort of piggyback on someone else's idea. And that's always not a good thing. And of course, from the corporate view, well, obviously, you need to increase profits from your product, even if it is made, popular by the community or grown because of the openness of the community. And there's always gonna be that sort of a shit happening, but it's always really disgusting when it does. So fuck companies. There you go. Right. Okay. Right. Next piece of topic. God damn it, it's been already 40 minutes. Holy fuck, I've been talking about. There's another mention, just a random factoid. FIFA Ultimate Team, the most pay-to-win, microtransaction-laden garbage out there, has made more money than Elden Ring during the January phase, apparently. And well, what can I say is yeah, it's shit. Next piece. Right, so those that are interested in Payday, apparently Payday in January did show off, or rather for Payday 3 specifically, the Steam page appeared. Now, if you're into Payday, there you go. You can expect the game to at least appear on the Steam for a little bit. And, well, whether or not it's going to be coming out anytime soon, that's a whole different topic. But there you go. First signs that it's coming out. Next, The Last of Us TV show released in January. And I did cover the first 2 episodes. The second, yeah, okay, fine. At least I'll use the Space News to, talk a little bit about the Last of Us here. And, yeah, I'm not going to be doing the follow-ups on the episodes specifically anymore. Just no one watches them, so fair enough. Not that I really put that much effort into it, but hey, fine, fair enough. Last of Us TV show is a rather interesting change because unlike the past game or popular media shows, this one is actually, following or, being as faithful in almost all areas to the source material as possible, and that is very unusual. You see, the last couple of TV shows, Witcher, for example, is deviating from the source material heavily. No one gives a fuck about, what's going on with that one anymore from the production side of things, as also the writer of Witcher, God damn it, I don't remember the name, but The writer himself doesn't, really care too much about the TV show. Basically, the producers are thinking about their own, nonsense as to what to produce stuff for it, and yeah, the Blood Origin was garbage, basically. Halo TV show also was pretty. No. Let's see. Oh, right. The Lord of the Rings is another one. Like, what the fuck? And then comes out the Last of Us TV show, which everyone expected, hey, one of the more beloved video game stories to be yet again butchered by, yet another release. And as a surprise, it wasn't. Well, there were a couple of changes to the TV show and to the game's sort of world, specifically the way spores worked, or rather didn't, in the TV show. Instead of spores, you have these long, stretchy, tentacle vines, whatever, connection between, zombies and basically that fungus being replaced, or replacing the sporeness of it. And that's a change. It's a fundamental change how the threat in the world works, but fine as it is for now. I would say that despite the little changes here and there, and of course a questionable cast choice, the show is pretty good, or at least it's as faithful as it goes with the source material. Of course, only 2 episodes have come out, and thus far it is watchable, it is interesting, and if you're a fan of the game, you might actually find it to be quite, as I said, faithful. And that's, frankly speaking, really nice change of pace. Of course, we'll see how it progresses further, but it seems to be going in the right direction. As for the cast choices, despite Belle Ramsey being Ellie, actress specifically, the Lady Mormont from Game of Thrones, the little kid, she visually doesn't really resemble the Ellie, but mannerisms are wonderfully reenacted. Yes, she's a bit too tall for Ellie and blah blah blah, but basically, looking past those more, I suppose, glaring visual aspects of the TV show, and I suppose the somewhat of a lackluster acting from Pedro Pascal, it's still very faithful TV show. There are some changes that I noticed immediately in the second episode as well, that kind of changes a little bit of character motivation. Ultimately, these are details that don't exactly impact the story. Well, we still have the beat for beat, or at least near beat for beat, comparisons between the TV show and the game. So, as it goes, it is actually quite the closest thing we've gotten to a one-to-one version of a video game story to translate it into another medium. So, good job, for at least now. We'll see how it progresses further. So I suppose give it a go. If you don't like the casting, fair enough. If you don't like the changes to the way the fungus works, fair enough. Those would be the biggest problems. Aside from that, we'll see. Now, moving on then. Oh, gods, what do we got? Oh, right. Actually, speaking of the Last of Us TV show, apparently, as it goes with a good TV series releasing, the game sales tend to jump quite a bit, as we saw with Witcher, as we saw with Cyberpunk, and now with The Last of Us. Apparently, the sales have jumped notably higher thanks to the TV show, and that's always nice to see overall. So if the TV show succeeds, there's a new life in the game as well. Let's remember that on PC also, Last of Us is coming on March 2nd or 3rd. I think it was 2nd or 3rd March. So there you go for the PC folks like yours truly, who have or haven't played the game. There's the chance to enjoy it on the current gen, not current gen platforms, but just PC. There we go. So there you go. That's another thing that will be coming out relatively soon, by which let's see, the TV show should be around 6 or 7 episodes in, not the full season. Need to look up whether or not the season is 8 or 12 episodes, but regardless, it's gonna be quite well in, and we'll have a better look at the TV show by then. Anyways, oh gods, right? So days before, right? So. Oh, here's a big fucking thing. Right, so Days Before is a video game that is, I suppose, similar to... God damn it, what was it? Not the Destiny... Oh, God. No, not Watch Dogs. Fucking... Division, there we go. Similar to Division. Very pretty from the trailers, if you will, but there's not been an actual gameplay reveal or gameplay trailer release. And the funny thing is, it's been delayed a couple of times. A lot of creators have called out it as a potential scam, not really being a video game due to the constant release delays and so on and so forth. At one point, it was the most wish-listed game on Steam, and now, due to quote-unquote trademark problems, or rather not having the trademark, it is removed from Steam, or has been pulled completely from the Steam. Developers have come out saying that, oh, well, we planned on delaying it again for 9 months, despite the trademark nonsense, but ooh, there's a lot to say about that game. Frankly speaking, yeah, it's a lot of nonsense. Anyways. Fuck. DayZ 2. Gotcha. Right. Quick little break. Crap. I'll be back in just a minute. There we go. Right, so, to continue on with the Days Gone, 4 days before, sorry, well, first of all, not particularly giving too many fucks about the third-person game myself. It's still an interesting story overall because, well, hey, they made a very evocative sales pitch for it, and as Big Fry, if you know, Big Fry is a fellow content creator who covers shooter-type games, has basically called it a scam, you know, and basically a non-existent game that essentially is just lying and blah, 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 blah. And he has a decent amount of point, despite the fact that they haven't raked in any cash or pre-sales before game's release or for the game's release. It's still a weird state of being, if you will, for a game like that. Coming out with, you know, lots of good-looking sales pitches, still not releasing and gathering information for gathering interest for the project. It's still not exactly the most honest way of going about, if you will, if you're still not developing a game or not releasing anything for it. And they've mentioned, oh, well, hey, we wanted to release a gameplay trailer before the trademark dropped, or rather, before the trademark issue dropped. We want to release the gameplay trailer so that, you know, people can see you know, how exciting and interesting that game would be. The trademark was Right, so basically the trademark issue essentially came out that a single person has claimed that, oh, well, they don't have the trademark, or rather, the trademark belongs to them rather than the developers of the game itself. And Big Fry did comment an interesting aspect of it. Even if they didn't secure the trademark 4 days before or day before. Problem is that you could always technically change the name of it, as in fact Ion Fury in past has done. Those that don't know, Ion Fury was a boomer shooter sort of a game on Build Engine, published by 3D Realms. Let's see, and developed partially as well. The game originally was called Ion Maiden. And due to some, trademark disputes or copyright disputes specifically, for obvious name reasons, they were forced to change the name. However, that product never disappeared from the Steam's page or Steam itself. So days before seems to be, well, there are indications that there's something behind it, essentially. That trademark shouldn't be much of a reason to remove the whole page, though I suppose Steam could potentially do something about it. However, as of now, as I checked it, there hasn't been yet a statement produced by Steam, Valve, specifically about this particular case. It's just the word of the developer itself. But regardless, fine, Steam does what Steam does. Again, there's the concern about particularly just hyping up a good-looking trailers and not really releasing a product, essentially. Even so, and essentially, it's an interesting case. Nevertheless, whether or not developers are 100% truthful or not, days before is an interesting sort of a study case, if you will, particularly about the way games can be hyped up, and even if they are not being sold, they can still be considered as lies, and still be a bad thing. Because hey, no matter if you sell or not, it's still dick move at the very least on the surface level. It's obviously, honestly, no. Now that I think of it, of course, I'm not a legal person, so no legal advice, blah blah blah. But still, advertising a fake product, or non-existent product. I think there are rules against, or laws against it, aren't there? There should be. So yeah, it's an odd thing. Again, we'll take a look at what's going on, but essentially the news piece is that, hey, there was this game, most wishlisted thing on the Steam for one instance in time, and indeed it has been taken down or taken out of the Steam because of quote-unquote trademark dispute, or rather not possessing the trademark for the day before specifically. And yeah, it's odd, to say the least. The way developers handle it, the way developers mention it, and indeed whether or not even the product is real. So there is that. Anyways, moving on then. Speaking of Steam and games, have you ever spent $2,000 on a video game? Yes, that's right. On Steam right now, you can go and buy a game called The Hidden and Unknown. A literal $2,000 game. The most expensive thing on Steam. Now, so, basically what that game, quote unquote, is a, if you've ever played, I don't know, dating sims or visual novels? Yeah, visual novels would be best one. You've probably had a run-in with a game engine called Ren'Py. Essentially a very, very quick and simple sort of I suppose Unity kind of an engine, or SDK, sort of development kit that allows for visual novels to come through. And from the looks of things, it seems to be using quite a bit of it. And it consists of basically just pictures, and developer claims specifically that yes, the gameplay is less than 2 hours, so yes, technically you could run through it or play through it within less than 2 hours for $2,000 and refund it. And developer says that that's all right. Now, however, the problem is whether or not it actually is worth it. Even, if you're not forced to buy a game for $2,000 and it's, it's not it's optional like everything else is. Pricing a game like this is it's not even played for a joke. It's played for real because the developer claims that, hey, it's using philosophy and psychology, discussing those types of things, and frankly speaking, it's absurd. Even if it is. Even if developer thinks that it's worth $2,000 for a fucking video game, right? Which is, well, let's be frank, if you go and no, I'm gonna show you because you have to see this, because I have a lot to say about that sort of a wankery and pretentiousness. Because it really is. Alright, give me a moment. I'm gonna open up my fucking Steam because this is absurd. It has to be shown and mocked. Jesus fucking Christ, kill me. Right, give me a moment. Let me just put it on the screen. Yep, there we go. Yabba dabba doo. Right, so there you go. The actual price is there. That is the price. That is the trailer for it. Story, prediction, mystery, future, unpredictable, confusion. Oh, God. Okay, let me just pause this stuff, right? So, right, it's a visual novel. That's all it is. There's very little, if at all, gameplay to, visual novels, choices, blah, blah, blah. But regardless, essentially, developer, not Pro X, but the Pro, as he calls himself, or themselves, because we don't really know who, regardless. So basically, the game is The Hidden and Unknown is a story-based game that aims to widen the perception of its audience in the area of psychology and philosophy. Right. I don't think there are psychology and philosophy books, extensive books on both of these subjects, that combined, on average, would be worth $2,000. At this point, this is not played for a joke. And the visuals, not even visuals, are... I mean, look at this shit, right? For $2,000, if you're gonna be selling, hell, even on just the face value, let's say there is enough information to be $2,000 fucking worth of information or thought-provokingness. You could at least get a fucking artist to do their best, say from DeviantArt, to make screens for you. And this is, I'm assuming this is RenP, but the game engine being RenP. But honestly, at this point, visual novels have multiple engines on which they run. There are, again, RenP is probably the most popular one, but even so, it's astonishing, essentially, that somebody is so far up their ass to think that it's a good idea, not even for a joke, to put this on. Right, so, if it was a joke, Okay, I could understand that, hey, haha, let's just do something really stupid and just spend, or rather make a sort of a statement. With a joke, you could make a statement that, hey, games are priced far too much. And you could say that it's a performance art, that, hey, if people are willing to spend that much money, it should be regulated or whatnot else. You could make a joke game like this. But this is taking itself so fucking seriously. It's astonishing that anyone thought that this would work. And this is probably a single person dev stuff. Again, need to look into it more, but the basic premise of it is just somebody so far up their ass to think that this is even remotely, or can be remotely taken seriously. It's astonishing. For the reasons that, no, there are far better cases, far better examples of games that are not only thought-provoking, but actually more engaging. Let me just show you an example that is actually worth far more than its priced at. And certainly far more than this thing is. So, and just because you can refund it in 2 hours doesn't mean that it's okay. Right now, you can go and take a look, play through the beginner's guide, an astonishingly interesting and thought-provoking, very, very, very evocative game that is just nothing but a simple walking simulator. Literally, all you do in it is just move forward and listen to what the game has to say. That's it. It actually provokes you to think of game design, games, and the way we perceive the art as, specifically in this case, game development, but not even that. Beyond that, what is a piece of art, if you will, or rather how we perceive art. And overall, it is genuinely awesome. I recommend it tremendously. Go take a look at it if you have the time. And it's far more worth than it is priced at. It really is. So yeah, I would say it's easily worth $60 just for really interesting, thought-provoking steps that it takes. This, on the other hand, is just pretentious, self-fart sniffing thing, whatever you want to call it, really. You're thinking so highly of your own work that you didn't think that it would be worth actually putting in a more detailed background. Such a simple thing, right? Backgrounds for whatever the story you're putting forward. The looks of things. At least it's not just some MS Paint nonsense, but if it was MS Paint, at least you could say that that was taken as a joke, but taking yourself so goddamn seriously that you think you're, well, deserving of such an amount. Again, I can't but to stop using the word astonishing wankery. Sure, games tend to be quite, or rather, there are, game developers that are quite artistic, and there are game developers that think so highly of themselves that, they make the most amazing art out there. You usually see that sort of shit in walking simulators. A lot in walking simulators. This is that sort of a case, but it's pushed up to 11. Yeah, no. First of all, it's essentially attempting to deny the, the simple supply and demand, basic economy approach to it. And it's just saying, nah, mates, I'm just gonna create this, whatever, I don't know, nonsense. Essentially, and then again, I can't but to go back to the comparison of books. There are far more engaging, far more interesting, and indeed, even if I personally don't like reading too much, I would much rather go and read a goddamn, not novel, but actual study book for philosophy, as you say here, and psychology. that would educate me far more and make me think far more than essentially a performance art. And a bad performance art at that. So there you go. This is, yeah, no one's gonna buy it. The only people who are gonna buy it are probably gonna also refund it, since you can finish in less than 2 hours and refund policy works and blah blah blah. And on top of it, it's just, I don't know what to say. It's just pretentious. And yes, games tend to be quite pretentious, films tend to be quite pretentious, but no one is this fucking delusional to think that this is okay or this would work. So yeah. Anyways, moving then on to, yoink, that's that. Window capture there we go. Now, next story, I guess. Dead Space remake, right? So, in just a few days, just a few days ago, Dead Space remake released finally, and first couple cursory looks on reviews seem to be indicating it is a positive release. From the looks of things, it's actually a good release. But then again, hey, all you needed to do is just improve the quality of existing assets and fix a few things. But then again, hey, at least it's not a San Andreas, right? So there is that. There's the Dead Space remake. I still personally need to go and take a look at it. Haven't had the time, but there you go. Next up is another TV show, and yeah, I might as well, if I'm not gonna be making a video, let's talk about Velma. Those of you that haven't followed HBO, I guess, or the cultural osmosis in some ways or others. The other thing that HBO has released, aside from Last of Us, was Velma. The more mature, gory approach that, the Scooby-Doo story, or the characters specifically Velma as the titular character. And oh, it's bad. Like, it's just disgustingly bad. And, I don't know even where to fucking begin with it. It just, first of all, it's not funny. It's spiteful. It's trying to be funny, but instead it just comes off as extremely spiteful on literally every instance it makes a joke or attempts to make a joke or any kind of a statement. It's, yeah, the more you think about it, the more you just wonder what the hell were they thinking. And not, again, even aside from the visual changes and the stupidity that goes into a lot of it, just the story, the characters themselves, the world, the writing is just oozing with contempt and spite for everyone. Not just for the titular character, not for the, the social whatever commentary they're trying to put through. Just the writing team is absolutely just, or well, singularly, I guess, just being, I wouldn't say hateful, but no, it's spiteful. It genuinely spiteful and contemptual. If that's a word, I mean, it is astonishing. I watched the first 2 episodes. I was disgusted, but I was willing to see where it's going. I gave it a chance. Episode 3 comes out, and I'm literally 5 minutes in, and I'm just no. I couldn't take it anymore, and that's the thing. I'm willing to drag myself through shit to see where it's going, even if it's bad. Especially if it's bad, I'm willing to see it through, because at least then I can have valid reasons to say it's garbage and rant about it. At least I have something back for my wasted time, like Bleach, for example. Bleach is garbage. TV, animated show, whatever you want to call it. It genuinely is garbage. Velma, I gave up on episode 3. It just was No, no. And if you ever have if you ever see clips online about the current Velma TV show, just don't watch it. As in, yeah, watch the clips and whatnot else if you really want to, but take my heed. Don't waste your time. It genuinely is not worth anyone's intellectual time unless they really want to go catatonic into a fucking coma. It. Oh. But yeah, no. No. That's all I really want to say about it. I genuinely don't want to spend any time even trying to critique it seriously, because it itself is not being serious. Or rather, if it is, it's being just basically a massive fucking cunt. So that's all it is. There we go. Moving on then. Oh god. Right, the voice actor from Rick and Morty. Hold on, what was his name? Oh god, Justin Rowland has been let go from production company for Rick and Morty, as well as the High on Life game studio that released the game High on Life, right? So yeah, no. This is an interesting one. In a similar vein, not being led by an asshole, being employed, or having an employee that is extremely weird and assholey, or questionable in many regards. Justin Rowland has been in the press, or rather slightly out of the press, for the questionable remarks, as well as attitude and of course actions to his not co-host, but co-staff, I guess, or to the other staff of Rick and Morty's production, of course, as well. In I think, hold on. There was an instance in 2019 where I think it was the sexual assault charges were handled outside of the court, or well, silently nonsense, something. Basically, there have been a list of Justin Rowland's particularly interesting attitude towards basically everyone around him since Rick and Morty has spiked in popularity ever since its beginning, essentially. And now the allegations are finally coming out, and again, to be safe on my side, I'll say that those are just allegations. But essentially, recently, Adult Swim, who's milking the tits out of their only cash cow, which is Rick and Morty, has decided to let go Justin before the trials have even concluded, and the man has been convicted, or what was the opposite of conviction? Not atoned. English thesaurus bad. You know what I mean. Or yeah, somebody in the chat's probably know what I mean. Regardless, before the man has been, sentenced, or the skills acquitted. There we go. Thank you, acquitted. Yes. So either acquitted there. So yeah, whether or not this kills Rick and Morty is a good question, because his voice is very unique and his style definitely was very unique. However, the problem is that Rick and Morty, it's semi-improvisational, and that is the part that I personally don't like from Rick and Morty myself. I much rather just again, as the team from Rick and Morty has multiple times mentioned, in especially the last season, back to old adventures. What the fuck does that even mean, right? Or what kind of a criticism is that? Well, if you don't know what that criticism means, then you clearly don't know what made you even interesting and popular, or at least noteworthy in the first place. again, there's plenty of criticism to be laid upon the style changes as well as the narrative that Rick and Morty has gone through, as well as their successes, of course, as well. But specifically taking out Justin as the voice actor, being responsible for Rick and Morty, whether or not it can be replaced, I think they're gonna try. That's the thing. They will be trying, because again, for Adult Swim, Rick and Morty is they're really the only big, well, their biggest, definitely, but whether or not it's their only cash cow, hard to say. But yeah, currently it is the most popular one, absolutely. So they won't let it just go that simply. Specifically, but what will happen of the narrative, the style, the overall production of the whole Rick and Morty show is still up in air, because yeah, the man, like it or not, was very integral to the characters and writing as well, or well, the lack of the writing. Though then again, that's kind of the thing with Dan Harmon's endeavors everywhere. Sure, Dan is not particularly on board with Rick and Morty these days much anymore, but he's still hanging around and, you know, doing his own things still. Dan, I don't know. If you watched a lot of what Dan Harmon has made over the years, he has a wonderful start for a lot of what he does, but keeping it up, or at least finishing what he starts, is something that just doesn't quite come easy for him, or at all, and it ends up being basically a, well, frankly speaking, a, well, sad whimper of a fart as it sort of peters out over the time. But who knows? Rick and Morty has established a rather interesting history for itself and a style for itself. At this point, it's hard to say. But Justin has to... Yeah, Justin has been a problem, shall we say, for the show, for the team, for the staff. And I don't blame Adult Swim for finally pulling the trigger on his firing. So there you go. Anyways, moving on then. Oh gods, we have... So, remember Darktide? Yes, the Warhammer 40k Darktide clone of a clone of a clone game for Left 4 Dead's. Yes, developers have come out and apologized for botched launch and content updates. Now, in the recent times, for my Critical Horse Game Awards this year, or rather for the last year's games, I awarded Darktide for a couple of awards, one of them being the most disappointing one. So, the disappointment basically comes from the lack of actual gameplay and content for the game. As a matter of fact, on the launch specifically, Fat Shark deemed it necessary to release a cosmetic store, right? The microtransactions, but not the crafting. And to this day, they still haven't released full crafting, whatever they called it, for weapon crafting, or the perk system, perk crafting for weapons and so on and so forth. So, yeah, they've finally come out to, you know, apologize for basically their poor handling, and it indeed has been a very poor one. Let me read the open letter then. We take enormous pride in our ability to, at Fat Shark, to deliver a game that millions can enjoy. Humble brag much? Okay, yeah, fuck you. Every company that does this shit, fuck you. Like, I don't need your self-wankery in my face. How about you just get to the point, okay? Every company in the PR departments does it, and I'm sick of it. I'm genuinely sick of it. Despite the fact that I got the review copy from them, again, it was for an honest review, right? And I did give them my honest review, and it's just... You could do better. That's the thing. Fat Shark has done better in the past. But that's the first sentence. Fine, it's a PR response, but I'm fucking sick of it. Anyways, this was what we set out to do with Warhammer 40k Darktide, to create a highly engaging and stable game with a level of depth that keeps you playing for weeks, not hours. Okay, we fell short of meeting those expectations. All right, fair enough. Yeah. Performance-wise, yeah, it did fell off. Though playable it was. But whether or not it was actually according to set standards, yeah, that always has fallen off. Anyways, over the next months, for sole focus to address the feedback that many of you have, in particular, we focus on the next. Over the next few months, our sole focus is to address, there we go, the feedback that many of you have. In particular, we focus on delivering a complete crafting system, as I was saying, a more rewarding progression loop. Oh god, the story. Again, watch my review for Darktide. It's disgusting for the story side of things. It's visually really good, but there's literally no story. Literally no story in Darktide. And to continue to work on game stability and performance optimization. This also means that we will delay our seasonal content rollout and the Series X XS launch. The console launch. We'll also suspend the upcoming releases of premium cosmetics. We just couldn't continue down this path, knowing that we have not addressed many feedback areas in the game today. Thank you for playing and providing feedback. We really appreciate it. It has and will continue to help shape the game we love. Right. So first things first. Why did they release the game in this sort of a state? Well, as with everything, you have to meet certain deadlines, and Fat Shark are licensing the game's IP, and basically it being what is it? Not Game Foundries, but the Foundry is the fucking Frontier Developments bullshit. What was the Warhammer handler? God damn it! Games Workshop, there we fucking go. The Games Workshop has licensed the Warhammer 40k IP out to Fat Shark, and as it happens, in the past with Vermintide 1 and Vermintide 2, they managed to deliver a pretty good result, as it happens, but coming with the Darktide, I don't know, whose fault was it? Did they think that they could copy paste for the third time the same game, but with just different look? Well, clearly they didn't, or rather they weren't able to do it quickly enough. Or was it the Games Workshop who pushed for very tight deadlines? Personally speaking, I expect both sides to be just unrealistic about the development and release periods. Let's remember that Darktide was already delayed once. So yeah, even as a copy-paste, they just could not release it properly in time. Though it was relatively playable, example on the launch. It wasn't, extremely broken, but it was noticeably lacking in any kind of content. And that was the funniest part about it. There was a decent amount of gameplay in it. Or rather, was a hint for a gameplay. Because, yeah, sadly, as you compare the game, even to itself, or rather specifically, even if you compare Darktide to Vermintide 1, or Vermintide 2, God forbid, it's so empty. And that was the big problem, of course, as well. But performance was also another one, and so on and so forth. But yeah, no, it's I mean, what are you gonna do then now, Fat Shark? Huh? You're gonna well, they obviously have said that they are gonna stop releasing updates and just focus on actually delivering what was promised in the first place for the launch. Good luck with that. But the train has kind of sailed. The train. We're not playing the endless space, I think. Or was it? I think, yeah, the endless space was the one with the space train, right? Well, regardless, no. The sail, the boat has sailed. The launch has sailed. You've done fucked up, and frankly speaking, I will remember for forever, really, that Vermintide 2, despite its egregious microtransaction nonsense that it has, it's a lot better game than whatever fart-sniffing nonsense that Darktide was. It could have been a solid, decent game as long as it, had decent amount of content and gameplay in it. And it would have been really nice. But no, the priorities clearly was about the fucking store, or rather pushing out the store and pushing out the game in the first place without actual care given about the quality of the product overall. And here we are now with yet another meaningless apology, and well, that's kind of the saddest thing. Because it won't matter. It doesn't matter to me. People who enjoyed it at first on the face value, they're going to continue playing. But honestly speaking, if there is not much content in it, well, that's what everyone's going to be remembering. And I personally will remember not only just that it was empty back in the day, even if they add stuff later down the line, it's just a product that was shoveled out, thinking that, hey, the community, the populace was fucking stupid. Hey, as long as they're okay with it, it's a good game, right? Well, no, clearly it's not. So no. I tend to write off games like this quite often, and this is partially, I guess, ideal to send a message, if you will. So yeah, it's to send a message that you have to deliver a good fucking product. Delay it all you want, and I'll be happy to see delays. Yes, I will be happy to see game delays as long as you actually provide a good value and good result. As the good old quote goes, a delayed game is eventually good. A rushed game is forever bad. Or something like that, right? And that is quite true. Sure, we can be forgiving, and there are a couple of games that have come out of the bile and whatever other cesspool you can call it, the early nonsense release, like No Man's Sky, but that should be an exception than the norm. So yeah, that should be an exception, and it is an exception rather than a norm. In fact, the same sort of a thing is happening with Battlefield 2042. Despite its continued development, it's no. It's not gonna get that much better. The sentiment of the company is still, well, we all remember what the fuck they did. Released a goddamn barely working, well, I guess barely working wouldn't be quite fair enough, but heavily dogged and unperforming. I know how to English today. Very good, yes. Very poorly performing game that essentially was also void of content. And nowadays, there's a little bit more of it, but no, still shit. The fundamentals stay the same. The company's attitude stays the same. And No Man's Sky is only exceptional because they went through all of it and just sat down and did their goddamn job. More than what was asked eventually. And that's why we respect them. Not because they wrote a fucking apology and hoped for the fucking best. So yeah, it takes time. And then basically 99% of the companies don't have the time or will to eventually make a good game, or at least make good on their word. Sure, Cyberpunk is trying, or rather CD Projekt Red is trying to do better as well, but there are fundamental issues still within the game that I would personally count as a bad game. As for the attitudes of CD Projekt Red, well, I admire them, but Cyberpunk, again, was released early because, hey, we're gonna listen to our shareholders, and no one's gonna be happy if you release, garbage product. Even those shareholders who are pushing for a released product. So yeah, there's that integrity, I suppose, that I would deem as more important than just knee-jerking on someone else's pressure, despite how large it is. Anyways, moving then on. Right, on to some good stuff. Yes, Metro Exodus finally is releasing the mod tools for it, or modding SDK, the software development kit for it. And boy oh boy, it's a nice thing indeed. And let's see. And the title from the article I'm currently reading from is Metro Exodus Ukrainian developers release full modding toolkit in first update since the war began. And honestly, yeah, it's a rather big surprise that they still worked on Exodus. And modding tools are just fantastically great thing overall. Like, genuinely, I am happy for them. So yeah, we can expect more mod stuff coming soon. And if any of you out there are interested in taking a look at some modding stuff or getting into modding, well, please do. And I'll be interested to see what mod stuff will come out for Exodus in soon, because I personally didn't like Exodus. I really didn't like Exodus. There are fundamental story problems that I had with it, but the gameplay, yeah, it could use a few more mods. It would be pretty cool, definitely. So, let's see. Right, moving on then. Oh God! Right, so. Right, Modern Warfare 2's hardcore mode finally returns next month. Okay, so who cares? Right, so hardcore mode, a less tanky, well, one-shot kill gameplay mode, essentially. Originally from the launch was taken out for Modern Warfare 2. I did cover it. I didn't cover this specifically, the hardcore mode being in or out. I didn't mention it, but apparently, the hardcore mode wasn't placed in the launch and for multiple months afterwards because it crashed the game. Apparently, just a couple of changed values crashed the game. So yeah, that's ActiBliz Infinity Award, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, a hardcore mode. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, well, there you go. That's a little note, I guess. Right. Well, the next piece of news. Oh god. Okay, Elite Dangerous. Yes, we have some news about Elite Dangerous to talk about. I guess if anyone's interested, I'll just quickly skim through it. In the recent community goal for, well, within the game, hopefully everyone knows what those are. Basically just a big mission that everyone can contribute to, and eventually, depending on the tier level set by developers, it can succeed or fail. And for this one particularly, a reward was for everyone, for every player out there, to produce so-called what was it? The cloud-resistant sensors, or specifically was it stronger sensors? Was it? I don't remember how they called it, but in the game files they're called cloud-resistant sensors that help dealing with the problematic area that the new story Targoid nonsense releases. So you can use that there. However, the other module, or another thing that they released, or item for ships, was basically a module that allowed using extra anti-alien ship weapons, additional ones. Basically, right now, for those that are, out of Elite Dangerous nonsense, remember that within Elite Dangerous, Targoids being the big, aliens coming in to attack humanity at this point, there's a war, blah, 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 and in order to kill them, you can't use the normal weapons that you would use for killing other ships. You need to use the anti-Xeno weaponry. And when it comes to, let's see, for the Guardian-based weapons, more powerful versions of more normal stuff that originally was released, you can only use up to four weapons. Now, with this new module installed on your ships, you can get up additional 1 or 2 extra weapons like those equipped on your ship. Now, essentially, what that does is you sacrifice one optional compartment from your ship in order to be able to equip another, or 2 weapons on your ship for extra damage. A trade, basically, what that thing trades off is potentially hull damage or module damage for module reinforcement, which, let's be frank, everyone's going to be using one of those for additional weapon. And, for a trade-off, fine. But there's a lot to talk about Elite Dangerous and the questionable choice to spam the game with endless amounts, or what feels like endless amounts of additional weapons, tools, and crap specifically for AX or anti-Xeno gameplay. Because, like it or not, anti-Xeno is a small portion of overall Elite Dangerous gameplay, and yet, in at least ship outfitting, it seems to be taking up half of the available modules overall. Well, not really, about 1/4, but still, it's a big chunk. And, yeah. Again, I could rant on about the way, that design doesn't make sense, or how basically the game is being spammed with needless crap without regard for the overall gameplay or game mechanics. Well, not necessarily mechanics, but outfitting specifically. How it's polluting the game with needless crap, and it genuinely is design pollution. That's what it is. So, yeah, there's more stuff that will be coming out for the cloud resistant. For example, we already know from the game files there will be cloud resistant shields, or was it caustic resistant shields or something like that. Basically, if you just dump data from Elite Dangerous, you'll find a few references to, different kinds of modules that I've covered in my leak videos before. So there's that. So it's basically just polluting the game with needless crap for one specific type of gameplay, which, frankly speaking, is overplayed at this point to a certain extent. It's still good, but it's overplayed. Additionally, there's another topic that kind of came up as I was watching some, Elite creators. One was specifically about Odyssey content, right? Elite Dangerous released Odyssey, the newest DLC that changed Elite Dangerous or added the space lights, right? And the question from one of the very small creators was, where is the Elite Dangerous Odyssey content? Like, this anti-Xeno stuff is all in space. You don't need to use space legs for that. Hell, there's really been only one addition to space legs overall, and that's been... Actually, no. Some one mission type. No one cares about those. But SRV. The Scorpion SRV is the only addition to Odyssey as a content for the space legs, or even closely pertaining to it, that has been added since 2 years ago when it launched. So where is that Odyssey content? And when it comes to ongoing content as well, why? I mean, yeah, sure, Targoid content is fun and all, but where's the variety to it? And right now, even with the new Maelstrom cloud things coming in, it's just a variation of it, of the same old shit. It's a new variation of the same old shit. But so where's the variety of this gameplay? So yeah, again, as I said, just pollution, design pollution, as I would call it. So there we go. Anyways, right, next piece, one of the last three pieces of news that we have is, oh god, okay. Do you like privileged goggles, ladies and gentlemen? Do you like the VR? Yes, indeed, Meta has unveiled, Meta has unveiled their VR Googless. Yes, and they will be costing around, or rather, they will be priced about $1,500. Yeah! Oh, guys, in my opinion, still, I would consider Valve Index to be the best one out there, though I haven't tried any of the other ones, so biased as fuck. But ultimately, I find, oh god, hold on. Let's see, the Meta's competitor, HTC, sells its Vive Pro 2 full system set for $2,000 and almost $200. Yeah, it's not cheap either, but oh god, yeah, the VR is just getting weird, and also considering that that's gonna be the fucking Facebook's VR headset for the metaverse and whatever other restrictions they put on it, just go with HTC Vive, or better yet, like I did with Valve Index. In my opinion, Valve Index is the best one. The controllers are absolutely phenomenally good. The 144 hertz refresh rate is better than the visual quality of the pixels. The 4K nonsense, absolutely, in my opinion. But you know, hey, that's just me. So, anyways, yeah, Facebook's. I really have no other. Actually, did they post specs for it real quick? Because let me just check through. Because no specs. Hold on. Let me really quickly take a look. Let me just quickly take a look. Meta Quest Pro, right? Let's see. Meta Quest Pro. Let's see. When the fuck was it released? No, it should be Meta Quest Pro 2, I think. Oh, wait, no. Quest 2. Oh, god damn it. This is a Quest thing. The Quest 2. There we go. No, that's not it. That also came out. What the fuck? Where's... How did they call it? Hold on. Meta Quest Pro. Yeah. But what? Fuck it. It doesn't matter. Honestly, at this point, it doesn't matter. Let's just move on. Fuck it. Now, you don't really need to pay more than about $1,000 for a VR headset. It's already overpriced as hell. The privileged goggles ain't no. Valve Index. Just go with Valve Index. You'll thank me later, trust me. Anyways, right, moving on. Then PC Gamer, what we got? Right. Speaking of Valve, there was at the start of the year there was the biggest leak in Valve's history pertaining to, let's see, there was TF2 for the most part, and some Half-Life as well stuff, as well as Portal, but mostly to TF2 stuff. Let me just show you then in the Reddit post there some images, leaks. Essentially, a lot of leaked information was about unused assets. One of the most notable assets was, and this will give you nightmares most likely. There we go. Let me just Yep, there we go. These are the assets that were sort of leaked, and it's just part one. There are a few more other things, unused maps, unused animations, little things like those. Again, assets, 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 stuff like that, essentially, that was not used yet or was in testing phases. There were maps that were basically just testing parts, and of course level 4 sentry. Yeah, apparently that thing was supposed to have the final form. Holy fuck. Well, again, knowing Valve's, or specifically Team Fortress 2's balance, this would be balanced eventually somehow. But yeah, level 4 sentry. Yeah, it's a chunker, isn't it? Oh god. But yeah, this apparent leak was specifically let me just yep, there we go. This particular leak was released, and there are plenty of other little tidbits about it. Let me just check the part 2. But yeah, it mostly has to do with TF2. There are, as I said, maps and so on and so forth. Nothing particularly out there that, wasn't particularly interesting, I guess. But hey, if you like some leaks, there you go. Apparently it is the biggest one, though not the most interesting in my opinion. I personally am more interested about Half-Life 2 leaks stuff. But ever since we got the final hours of, I think, Half-Life Alyx, we got a sad sort of reminder that unfortunately Half-Life Episode 3 probably won't ever come out. And there's that too, so... yeah. So anyways, I do recommend you take a look at the final hours of Half-Life Alyx. It's not really a game. It's more of a semi-interactive reading thing you can buy out of Steam. It genuinely is interesting. Very well done and very well put together. But yeah, it kind of puts an interesting sort of a picture in perspective for overall what Half-Life has been for Valve, or why nothing new has really come out of it, and the way the company works, and it's interesting to see how Valve works still, nonetheless. Anyways, moving on then to the last one, which is, yeah, again, the Stadia is dead. So that was the main topic. Holy fuck. Okay, right. I guess I kind of lied on the last topic there, but anyways, whatever. Of course. Anyways, in the end, of course, I do say, well, tune in for the next month, as I will try to keep this sort of stuff going. And of course, do check out the other videos and so on and so forth. Do check out the links down below, like Patreon, if you want to support the content I make, and support the Space Race News and other things I do. For the end of the stream, I might as well check. Yep, no tips or anything like that, so I don't need to shout out anyone just yet. So that's good. Mad. Still, thanks for watching, of course, and yeah, if you got any news during the next month's period, do poke me on the Discord. Do actually join the Discords, and if you want to take a look at the past Space Race News transmissions with me and Pilot, as we are just bullshitting around and chatting up some storms about whatever happened that particular week or weeks since the last transmissions and what else. Yeah, check out the link down below. I'll put the playlist there. But that aside, I bid you adieu. Take care of yourselves, and of course, good luck surviving, I guess. This post-apocalyptic nonsense. Anyways, take care, and I'll see you then next time. Now, where's the fucking button? Right. No, also, fuck YouTube, goddammit.